Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Apadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahaganaragunatan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Pando Jagatpate Kopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisa Bhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarupyascha kripa sindhupya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurpani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashattaya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Haribo. Okay, so today we start a new chapter, chapter 15, and it is
Haribo.
Haribo. It is the yoga of the Supreme Person. Haribo. Okay, text number 1. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Urdvamulam adasakam asvattam prahuravyayam chandamsi yasya parnani yastam vedasa vedavid. Shri Bhagavanuvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Urdvamulam, with roots above, Ada downwards, Shakam, branches, Asvattam, banyan tree, Prahu, said, Avyayam, eternal, Chandamsi, Vedic hymns, Yasya, of which Parnani, the leaves, Yaha, anyone, Tam, that Veda knows, Sahahi, Vedavid, the knower of the Vedas. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, There is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Okay, who knows what this tree is? Does anyone know what the tree is? What it means? Banyan tree that has its roots upward.
I think it's the material world.
Yes, Prabhu. Haribol. Era Prabhu is the knower of the Vedas. Haribol.
Haribo.
Purport. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another, to another, to another. The tree of this material world has no end, and for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. This tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located, the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. This process of extrication should be understood. In the previous chapter, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of the material entanglement. And up to the 13th chapter, we have seen that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotional service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. The process of breaking attachment to the material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upward. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded, with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represents the results of the living entity's activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. What are these? Artha, Kama, Moksha. But this one I don't remember. Artha, Kama, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Yeah, those I think. Now there is no ready experience in this world of a tree situated with its branches down and its roots upward, but there is such a thing. The tree can be found beside a reservoir of water. We can see that the trees on the bank reflect upon the water with the branches down and roots up. In other words, the tree of this material world is only a reflection of the real tree of the spiritual world. This reflection of the spiritual world is situated on desire, just as the tree's reflection is situated on water. Desire is the cause of things being situated in this reflected material light. So just as the tree expands endlessly and it goes deeper to ignorance in the material reflection, it expands endlessly and it goes deeper to the lower and lower species and deeper to ignorance. Similarly, the real tree, it goes upwards and it goes deeper and deeper to the real knowledge. But that's really nice. It's also endless to the other way. Where were we? Then this tree, being the reflection of the real tree, is an exact replica. Everything is there in the spiritual world. The impersonalists take Brahma to be the root of this material tree, and from the root, according to Sankhya philosophy, come Prakriti, Purusha, then the three gunas, then the five gross elements, Mahabhuta, Pancha Mahabhuta, then the 10 senses, Dashendriya, mind, etc. In this way, they divide up the whole material world. If Brahma is the center of all manifestations, then this material world is a manifestation of the center by 180 degrees, and the other 180 degrees constitute the spiritual world. The material world is the perverted reflection, so the spiritual world must have the same variegatedness, but in reality, the Prakriti is the external energy of the Supreme Lord, and the Purusha is the Supreme Lord himself, and that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Since this manifestation is material, it is temporary, A reflection is temporary, for it is sometimes seen and sometimes not seen. But the origin from whence the reflection is reflected is eternal. The material reflection of the real tree has to be cut off. When it is said that a person knows the Vedas, it is assumed that he knows how to cut off attachment to this material world. If one knows that process, he actually knows the Vedas. One who is attracted by the ritualistic formulas of the Vedas is attracted by the beautiful green leaves of the tree. He does not exactly know the purpose of the Vedas. The purpose of the Vedas, as disclosed by the person of Godhead himself, is to cut down this reflected tree and attain the real tree of the spiritual world. Ribol. Okay, who wants to read the text number 2?
My Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hadas Chodyavam Rastasya Sakha Guna Pravruddha Visya Pravalaha Adhascha Mulanya Anus Anusanatani कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनस्या लोके अधः downward cha and urdhavam upward prastra prastha extended tasya its sakha branches guna modes of material nature pravriddha development visya sense objects pravala twins adha downward cha and mulani roots anusana anusantani extended karma according to work anubandhani bond manusya loke in the world of human society. Translation: the branches of these tree extended downward and yeah, sorry. The branches of this tree extended downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The wings are the objects of the senses. Wings are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down and see, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. Purport: the description of the banyan tree is further explained here. Its branches are spread in all directions. In the lower parts, there are variegated manifestations of living entities such as human beings, animals, horses, cows, dogs, ants, etc. These are situated on the lower parts of the branches, whereas on the upper parts of the higher higher form of living entities, the demigods, Gandharvas, fairies, and many other higher species of life. As a tree is nourished by water, so this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. Sometimes we find that a tract of land is barren for want of sufficient water, and sometimes a tract is very green. So similarly, where the modes of material nature are proportionately greater in quantity, the different species of life are manifested in that proportion. The wings of the tree are considered to be the sense objects. By three development of different modes of nature, we develop different senses, and by the senses we enjoy different varieties of sense objects. The source of the senses, the ears, the nose, eyes, etc., is considered to be the upper wings, turned to the enjoyment of different enjoyment of the different senses. objects. The leaves or sound form touch the sense objects. The roots, which are subsidiary, are the byproducts of different varieties of suffering and sense enjoyment. Thus, we develop attachment and aversion. The tendency toward pity and impity are considered to be the secondary roots spreading in all directions. The real root is from Brahmaloka, and the other roots are in the human planetary systems. After one enjoys the result of virtuous activities in the upper planetary system, he comes down to this earth and renews his karma or future activities for promotion. This planet of human beings is considered the field of activities. Okay, rebirth. But Prabhu, if we surrender to Krishna, all three modes are working in under Krishna, no Prabhu. So we can be in goodness always, like that.
Yes, Prabhu.
If we chant like that, if we in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is the main maintainer of three modes of material nature.
Ribol, yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to continue?
Ribol. Okay, I can.
Yes, Prabhu.
न रूपम् अस्येह ततोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अस्वत्थमेनं सुविरुधमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूया तम् एव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्ति प्रसृत्र पुराणी. Na, not rupam form, asya of these three, iha in this tata also, upalabhyate can be perceived, na never, anta end, na never, cha also, adi beginning, na never, cha also, sampratishta the foundation, asvattam banyan tree, enam this suviruda strongly mulam rooted, asanga sastrena by the weapon of detachment, dridena strong, chitva by cutting, tataha thereafter, padam situation, that parimargitavyam has to be searched out. Yasmin where gataha going, na never, nivartanti comes back, bhuyaha again, tam to him, eva certainly, cha also. Adyam, original, Purusham, the person of Godhead, Prapadye, surrender, Yataha, from whom, Pravritti, beginning, Parastra, extension, Purani, very old. Translation. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So doing, one must seek the place from which, having once gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Person of Godhead, from whom everything has begun, and in whom everything is abiding since time immemorial. Here is the weapon of detachment, Ibo. Purport. It is now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world, since the root is upwards. The extension of the real tree is at the other end. No one can see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause. I am the son of my father is the son of such and such a person, etc. By searching in this way, one comes to Brahma, who is generated by the Karbodakasai Vishnu. Finally, in this way, when one reaches the Supreme Person of Godhead, that is the end of research work. One has to search out the origin of this tree, the Supreme Person of Godhead, through the association of persons who are in the knowledge of the Supreme Person of Godhead. Then, by understanding, one becomes gradually detached from this false reflection of reality, and by knowledge, one can cut off the connection and actually be situated in the real tree. See here, and by knowledge, one can cut. So, this is the sword of knowledge, Ribo. The word asanga is very important in this connection because the attachment for sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. Therefore, one must learn detachment by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures. And one must hear from persons who are actually knowledge. As a result of such discussion in the association of devotees, one comes to the Supreme Person of Godhead. Then the first thing one must do is surrender to him. The description of that place whence going no one returns to this false reflect the tree is given here. The Supreme Person of Godhead, Krishna, is the original root from whom everything has emanated. To gain favor of that person of Godhead, one has only to surrender, and this is a result of performing devotional service by hearing, chanting, etc. He is the cause of these extensions of this material world. This is already explained by the Lord himself. Aham sarvasya prabhava. I am the origin of everything. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the strong banyan tree of material life, one must surrender to Krishna. As soon as one surrenders unto Krishna, he becomes detached automatically from this material extension. Yeah, nice purport. In this purport, there was the detachment, the sword of weapon of knowledge, and then there was surrender. That when one finds the Supreme Person of Godhead, what he has to do. So that was also explained. He has to surrender then.
Yes, Prabhu.
Very well. Who wants to read next one?
Haribol, who wants to continue?
I
Or
will
else?
read when I'm at home. I'm not home yet. I
Yes,
will read
sir.
when I'm there, so someone
Okay,
else can.
okay.
Very well. I can read one more. निर्मानमोहाजितसङ्गदोषा अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामा द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञैर्गच्छन्त्यमूढात् पदम् अव्ययं तत्. Near without, mana respect, moha illusion, jita having conquered, sangha association, dosa faulty, adhyatma spiritual, nityaha eternity, vinivritta associated, kamaha lust, dvandvai with duality, vimukta liberated, sukha dukkha happiness and distress, samgnai. Yeah, this is hard word. I don't know how it's really pronounced. Named gachanti attains, amuda, unbewildered, padam situation, avyayam, eternal, tat, that, translation. One who is free from illusion, false prestige, and false association, who understands the eternal, who is done with material lust and is freed from the duality of happiness and distress, and who knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attains to that eternal kingdom. Purport. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. Because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of material nature, it is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Person of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Person of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. So how to begin surrender? Here was the answer. When one is free from delusion caused by pride. So one should become humble and not proud. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated, and he is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considered that the land, this earth, belongs to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false association caused by familial, social, and national affections. Hmm. These fake associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Person of Godhead. Haribol. Okay, now who wants to read next one?
I can read.
Yes, Prabhu.
Pasayate suryo na shatsanko na pavakaha yatkatvana nivartante tatama parama mama na not that that pasyate illuminate surya sun na nor shashanka the moon na nor pavakaha fire electricity yat where oh, okay, can I move? Gatva, going, na, never, nivartante, comes back, tat dhama, that abode, paramam, supreme, mama, my. Translation, that abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world. The spiritual world, the abode of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavana, is described here. In spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity because all the planets are self-luminous. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous, but all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets called Vaikunthas constitutes the shining sky known as Brahma Jyoti. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavana. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Goloka Vrindavana. As long as a living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through the false, perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In his conditional life, the living entity, oh yes, thank you, Prabhu, considers himself to be the lord of this material world, but in his liberated state he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes the associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. One should be captivated by this information. He should decide to transfer himself to the eternal world and extricate. What does that mean? Himself from this false reflection of reality. To get somehow this thing get out. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes Krishna, yes, for one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. Himself, those who are in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service. Can you, Prabhu, scroll a little? Thank you, Prabhu. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The words paramam mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the spiritual world is paramam, full of six opulences. In the Upanishads, it is also confirmed that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunshine or moonshine, for the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. Hari Bol. Do I still go on?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah, these are really important verses. Hari Bol.
What?
You can
Continue.
Prabhu. Read this
Continue,
one
continue.
more.
Continue, Prabhu. Like, okay.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu, read this one.
My
Prabhu, and yes, Hari Bol.
Jiva loke jiva puta sanatana manasastani triyani prakristani karshati mama my eva certainly amsa fragmental particles jiva loke world of conditional life jiva puta the conditioned living entities sanatana eternal manaha mind sastani tani 6. Indriyani, senses, prakriti, material nature, sthani, situated, karashati, struggling hard. Translation. The living entities in this conditional world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. In this verse, the identity of the living being is clearly given. The living entity is the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord eternally. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmented. This clearly said Sanatana. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva, and the secondary expansions are called the living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion, and the living entities are separated expansions. By his personal expansion, he is manifested in various forms like Lord Rama, Narasimhadeva, Vishnu Murti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikunta planets. The separate expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual identities of the Godhead, are always present. Similarly, the separated expansions of living entities have their identities. As fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the living entities have also fragmental qualities, of which independence is one. Every living entity has an individual soul, his personal individuality, and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In, in either case, he is qualitatively eternal, as the Supreme Lord is. In his liberated state, he is free from this material condition, and he is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditioned life, he is dominated by the material modes of nature, and he forgets the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. The living entities are not only the human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of the material world. Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word karshati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief a- agent which is driving him in this material existence. When the mind is in the mode of goodness, his activities are good. When the mind is in the mode of passion, his activities are troublesome, and when the mind is in the mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower species of life. It is clear, however, in this verse, the conditioned soul is covered by the material body with the mind and the senses, and when he is liberated, this material covering perishes, but his spiritual body manifests in its individual capacity. The following information is there in the Madhyanti Nayana Shruti. Sava esha brahmanishta idam shariram partyam atishriya brahma visampadya brahmana pashyati brahmana shnoti brahmanai vedam sarvam anupavati. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. And in his spiritual body, he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He can hear and speak to him face to face, and he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is. In Smriti, also, it is understood that in the spiritual planets, everyone lives in bodies featured like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, yeah, yeah. As far as bodily construction is concerned, there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansions of Vishnu Murti. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Mamaivamsa, fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, is also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. We have already understood in the second chapter that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. This fragment is not materially conceived. It is not like matter which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here because the Sanskrit word sanatana, eternal, is used. The fragmental portion is eternal. It is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter that dehinosmin yata, in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is present. That fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky. the spiritual planet and enjoys an association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one, just as the parts and parcel of gold are also gold. Haribol, thank you, Prabhu.
People, thank you so much, Prabhu. Okay, one straight, next one.
May I prove?
Yes,
I
Prabhu.
think so.
Yes,
If anyone who didn't read, we can. But if not, I can read.
you can read, Prabhu. Haribol.
Shariram yad avapnoti yak yak chape utkarma tisvaraha gritvaitāni samyati vayur gandan ivasyat shariram body yet as much as avapnoti gets yet that which cha also api virtually utkarmati gives up Ishvara the Lord of the body Kritiva taking Itani all this Samyati goes away Vayu air Gandhan smell Eva like Asayat from the flower. Translation: the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aroma, smell of flower. Here, the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. Okay. Own body. If he likes, he can change his body. Sorry, like distance. Here, the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after the annihilation of this body, everything is finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to void this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body which carries the conception of the next body develops another body in the next life. This process of migrating from one body to another and struggling well in the body is called karsati, karsati or struggle for existence. Ninth one, text 9. Srotram chaksu sampra, संपर्सनं च रसनं ग्रहणम् एव च अदित्य मनश्चैवं विषयान् उपसेवते स्तोत्रम् ears sutram ear chakshus ear eyes prasanam touch cha also rasanam tongue grahanam smelling power eva also cha and adistya being situated manha mind cha also an I am this Visyan sense objects upasate enjoys. Translation: the living entity, those taking on another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Okay. Purport. In other words, if the living entity adult, adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure, like water. But if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. Therefore, when he is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat or dog, hog, demigod, or one of the many other forms. For there are 8.4 million species. Mm,
So the consciousness by itself is pure, but when it mixes with the modes of nature, then the mind mixed in the modes of nature carries the consciousness to a new type of body.
Yes, probably this we have to note. This is very important here. When the consciousness is mixed with associate, like what is it? Changed according to the association of material qualities. Okay, okay. Real consciousness.
Okay, let's read one more. Who wants to read?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Oh, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, Bhaja Hari Prabhu, Dandat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Bhajari Prabhu Dandat Pranam Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Ji, Dandvat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Prabhu, can you read the last verse?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu.
Hari Bol, thank you, Prabhu.
उत्क्रामन्त उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितवापि भुजान् वा गुणान्वितं विमूढा नानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः उत्कर्मणाम् उत्कर्मणमन्तां quieting the body sthitam situated in the body vapi either bhunjanam enjoying va or guna anvitam under the spell of the mode of the material nature vimudha foolish person na never anupashyanti can see pashyanti one can see Jnana Sakshusa, one, one who has the eyes of the knowledge. Translation: the police cannot understand how a living entity can quiet his body, nor can they understand what sort of the body he enjoy under the spell of the mode of the nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all these. Purport. The word Jnana Sakshusa is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of the body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in the particular type of body. This requirement a great amount of knowledge understood from the Bhagavad Gita and similar literature heard from the bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Everything, every living entity is quieting his body under certain circumstance. He is living under certain circumstance and enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of the material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kind of the happiness and distress under the illusion of the sense enjoyment. Person who are everlastingly fooled by the lust and desire lose all power of the understanding their change of the body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is the different form of the body and is changing its body and enjoy in the different way. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, who those who are highly developed in the Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general. For their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Thank you.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Prabhu. So yes, this knowledge is the most important thing. Because without knowledge, one cannot understand these basic things. One cannot get any realization. And how one can give knowledge to someone? How is that possible? Does anyone know?
Here is written from the Bhagavad Gita and bona fide spiritual master what they are.
Yes, Prabhu.
Preaching, like preaching.
Yes, by giving the holy name, one can give knowledge. Because when one hears or chants the holy name, then Krishna gives the knowledge from inside, from the heart. So by giving the holy name, one can give knowledge. That is because if you even if one tries to read some references from Prabhupada's book or something like this, if Krishna doesn't give from inside, then he won't understand anything. There won't be realization. So by giving this holy name some way to make them appreciate the holy name, then they can get knowledge from inside. Then the knowledge will stay properly. Otherwise, it might just go 1 year and also prasadam is amazing way to give knowledge because it will make them interested about hearing. Yes. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Time is over.
Okay, now let's go to six Astakam prayers. Thank you so much, Paja Hari Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Thank you.
चेतो दर्पणमार्जनं पवमः दावाग्निर्वापनं श्रेयः कैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावादुजीवनम् आनन्दं बुद्धिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्णसङ्कीर्तनम्.
Hare Krishna. Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nij Sarva Sakti Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etadrasito Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdeva Idrasya Iha Janani Nanugrah Janina.
तृणादपि सुनिचेन तरोरपि सेवनया सदा हरि
Nadanam najanam asundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishvare pavatat bhakti rahai tuki paye.
Hinanda kinkaram patitam vishame bhavam buddho kripaya tava pada pankaja stita duli sadarsam vichintaya.
Nayanam Galada Asru Krishna. Nayanam Galada Asrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadarudaya Gira Pulakirane Shetam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati.
युगायितान्वेषेण शिशापरिदर्शितं सुज्ञायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दं विरहेण मे
Aslasya Padaratam Pinastu Mama Adrasnanamharmahatam Kurotu Va Yatha Tatava Vidhatulam Pato Mata Prananatastu Sa Evanapara.
Ribo, glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all the benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of the names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rule for the chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy name. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them.
one should One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all senses of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causes, devotional service, birth after birth.
O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet.
O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with the tears of your love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and when will the hair of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name?
Oh Govinda, feeling your separations, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditional.
Haribol, Sri Siksastakam Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Okay, now the 10 offenses to the holy name. Offense number 1, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Second offense to consider the name of the demigod like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal or to independent of the name of the Lord Vishnu.
Number 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master.
Number 4, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance to the Vedic version.
Fifth offense, to consider the glories of the chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination.
Sixth offense, to give some interpretations to the holy name of the Lord.
7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name.
8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda.
Ninth offense, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
Tenth offense, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachment even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema.
Haribo.
वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः पंचतत्व की जाय नित्यानंद प्रभु की जाय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य महाप्रभु की जाय शिला प्रभुपद की जाय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल।
Oh.